It's time. It's time to roll up my sleeves and do this once and for all. Okay, so there are a lot of pictures that all of you out there sent me, and I think it's high time that I got down to it. So, in between my ongoing review of Ben Cardall's series Pipes, Problems, and Reading People, and your regularly scheduled deduction training videos, I'm going to be binging through all these pictures like how my mom is currently binging through The Walking Dead. Before we get into the deductions, however, I want to take the time to shout out Robert Flagg, who recently made a pledge to me on Patreon, so thank you, Robert, your pledge is very much appreciated. If you would also like to donate to the channel as well, link to my Patreon is in the description. So, without further ado, my name is Jordan Ricardo, and welcome to Deductionist Proving Ground. Okay, so this was sent to me by a viewer by the name of Han Magne Nodland. Apologies, as always, for any mispronunciation, which probably just happened right now. Now, take the time to pause the video and make your deductions about the picture and leave them in the comments below before proceeding to hear my conclusions. Now, this picture was sent to me very shortly after my first episode of Deductionist Proving Ground. We can see that they took this picture right after watching it, as I debuted that piece of fan art at the end of that video. From this, we can determine that the subject is quick to act and excited, at the very least in regards to deduction-related things. From the general clutter of the desk, as well as the decorum, the movies on the shelf, and the fact that there is a sports trophy depicting a male. Note, I am not much of a sports guy. I imagine, and have tried to confirm with some quick internet research, that male and female sports teams and players get trophies depicting an athlete of their gender, so based on all of this, I am willing to say that the subject is male. While there is a pen and notebook on the left-hand side of the desk, there is also some evidence to suggest right-handedness. Firstly, there's the joystick. While many of you in the comments of previous episodes have informed me that left-handed people often use the mouse with their right hand as well, the presence of a joystick controller, however, which I imagine would require a decent level of dexterity to operate properly, would be better suited in the dominant hand. Secondly, the gamepad controller is also on the right-hand side. And lastly, the pen and notebook are on the left-hand side from this perspective only, but if you shift your view a bit, that section of the desk could be treated as the front. If the subject was sitting on this side of the desk with his legs underneath the desk here, then the notebook is actually on the right-hand side. The pen could also have been placed there by the left hand, but it is also possible that the angle could be achieved by haphazardly putting it down with the right hand. While I admit that this is certainly not as clear as previous episodes, and there is still a chance I'm wrong, the majority of the evidence points to him being right-handed. As for age, I'm willing to say that the subject is in his late teens. Considering how condensed all his belongings are into this one room, it stands to reason that said room is his personal area, rather than the whole house. He also likely comes from a middle-class family, considering the money that is able to be spent on all this expensive gaming equipment. But even so, it is more than likely that our subject has his own job, and thus has income he can use to spend on some of this equipment as well. We can also see that our subject is generally disorganized. His desk is obviously his primary workspace, and as a result, unrelated things tend to pile up. Continuing from that, we can see the two separate monitors from the laptop, speakers plugged into the laptop, the aforementioned joystick controller, a separate keyboard, a gamepad controller, a USB hub, and a general mess of wires everywhere. And the brand of laptop is a Razer, which specializes in laptops designed to handle intense graphics and frame rates of video games. All this paired together suggests that he is a pretty serious PC gamer. As for what sort of game he uses the joystick for, I'm going to say that he might have an airplane game of some description, given the fact that a model plane takes the coveted central top shelf spot, but he also likely uses it for other games that require such a controller as well. The entire setup shows that he likes to immerse himself in the experience of the game. Beneath his desk is what I at first mistook as a chair with no back, but is actually a footrest. As you can see, it has no wheels, and someone who spends most of their time playing video games is going to need some sort of chair with back support. Further evidence that suggests that he is a gamer is the PSP on the far left. Aside from gaming, he is just generally technologically inclined. The numerous tabs, 13 in total on the monitor to the left, as well as the presence of multiple monitors at all, and his presence on some sort of online forum all support this. Our subject is also inclined to accumulate objects for their aesthetic value. Why would a person with at least 3 screens, all of which can tell him the time, need a fancy holographic clock of some description in the shape of an M? Speaking of that clock, let's talk about it. The clock is set to military time, or at least that's what it's called in America. In much of Europe, the 24-hour clock is more mainstream. However, it is still mainly used for official purposes. The 12-hour clock is still used colloquially. Considering the lack of organization, something we wouldn't expect to see in a person who holds military values, while it is possible that one or both of his parents are former or active military, military and he adopted the time notation. It is also possible that it is because he lives in Europe. This one is really kind of a toss-up. I couldn't find any outlets in the picture, and while the movies I could make out are American films, English is still a known language by many Europeans, so it's hard to say with the available data where he lives. Also, the coin next to the pen could have helped, but I'm unable to determine what the currency is because of the photograph itself. It is possible that our subject requires prescription glasses, seen here, but I can't determine if they are prescription or not. Certainly the shape and style is not common for prescription glasses, but there doesn't appear to be much tinting of the glass either, so it doesn't appear to be sunglasses necessarily. But there is nothing underneath them, so I can't determine if there's any distortion that you would see from prescription lenses. All these things considered, I'm going to go with they are lightly tinted sunglasses, and they probably belong in that bag right there. There might also be a TV in the room, as we can see a TV remote right here, but that could just be because there is a broken TV remote and there was no other place to put it. But given how much time he spends in his room, I will say that there is a TV. There is also a tall mirror mounted on the wall to the right, so appearance is somewhat of a concern to our subject, or at the very least he is conscious of it. This indicates that he doesn't confine himself to merely his games and online interactions. People who physically socialize tend to want to look relatively nice when they go out, and mirrors help one to do that. A large mirror indicates that the subject might try on different outfits and see how they look from a full body perspective. Going back to the sports trophy, our subject has some history of playing competitive soccer, or football for all my European viewers. This suggests that athletic activities are or were at one point a significant part of his life, and thus I doubt our subject conforms to the stereotype of the out-of-shape computer gamer. Lastly, he also likes to get his thoughts down on paper, as seen by the notebook and scattered small sheets of paper. This suggests that he is full of different ideas and has a creative side to him. So, final conclusions. He's male, right-handed. He's aged 16 to 19. Comes from a middle-class family, has a job, he's a serious PC gamer, technologically minded, generally disorganized, spends the majority of his free time in his room, does participate in some social activities, has a history of playing competitive soccer, appreciates aesthetics over function in some regards, either has had family in the military or lives in Europe, and is creative, likes to get his thoughts down on paper, as well as quick to act on ideas. While there are some other miscellaneous observations and deductions one could make from this picture, that pretty much covers all the major points, and the data is beginning to overlap, so for sake of time, I'm going to stop right here. But I'm curious as to what you can all determine about the subject from what information is left. As always, I look forward to reading your deductions in the comments down below. Be sure to check the top comment as well, as it will be from the subject himself explaining what I got right and wrong. So, if you're new and you liked what you saw, be sure to subscribe. If you enjoyed this challenge, be sure to give the video a like. Also, if you would like to support the channel financially, you can donate via my Patreon. So, as always, thanks for watching all you aspiring detectives out there, and arrivederci.